dark because I turned off the lights. I am now in Brazil and it's hot. So I turned off all lights I could so I would be with you a little bit more comfortable here. And I cannot turn on air conditioning or anything because the audio gets terrible. Thank you, all of you, for being with me. And there are a few things that I would like to say from the beginning, perhaps as a disclaimer, because always when I'm going to talk about something that is more complex, I get concerned with how can I address the information in a full, complete way, in a way that I'm not just masking the reality or giving half truth only, but in a way that you become stronger with the information. And there are a few things for us to ponder here, because sometimes people would say it's better not knowing or not teaching about energy process because it's dangerous to teach it. And I think it's totally the other way around. What's dangerous is ignorance. And energy, our subtle energies, our chakras, our capacity to interact with some other dimensions, this is a natural skill of us, a natural ability, like a second nature. So it's not something that we teach or we don't teach. It is something that we can educate on how to use properly. And that's what we want to do. And I say this because when we talk about how energy can affect someone at a distance, I think it's very important to bring this idea. There is something in our work that we call cosmoethics, like some sort of ethics that is beyond just this life, this moment, the morals or the rituals and standards of education used in this current time. So cosmoethics is beyond this. My point by saying this is that there is a lot of knowledge about psychic abilities, how we interact with each other, how we can affect someone else's mind. But there is very little education about this, and lots is hidden, is not completely unveiled. And well, as many things in our society, I'm sure we can all relate to that. But the idea here is that how can we address something that is as natural as energy and how energy affects us, and at the same time be able to see what is the extent to which each of the possibilities go. So I wanted to say this and say that I think education is the best, and not because some group knows something, they cannot keep it only with them, because this is misused, is used for power. So let us think a little bit about some of the forces that are sometimes behind some events, some even actions or reactions that one person may have, and the loads of studies that have already been applied into using psychic abilities for perhaps purposes like gambling or competition with somebody. Can be business competition, can be war-like competition. But anyway, this has been very much used for a long time. So when we talk about energy and we have out-of-body experiences, and lots of what I discuss here comes from the out-of-body experience, how we observe the non-physical world, we see that there are some sort of energies or an energy that is involving objects, especially individuals, living things, and living things that not necessarily have a physical body. So let us think about the fact that for many of us, it is very natural that the consciousness does not die. We survive physical death. So when we are outside the body and we observe living beings, but living beings that are not living inside of the physical body, if you understand what I mean, but consciousness, it's people anyway, we can see how energy interact to one another, how in one specific place we would go, perhaps traveling outside the body and visiting a specific place in this planet, still in this physical dimension, we can sense completely different our energy because of connections that we may have had with that area. So a lot of what we are going to discuss here requires a little of understanding of this process, that when we are in a non-physical dimension, spirit world, astral dimension, we will always notice more energy, or the energy dimension, the reality of our subtle energies, than we do here in the physical body. Because the physical body works as a buffer. Until the subtle energy comes here and produces some effect, already long time has passed. So it's very important that we understand this aspect and we bring this into context here. That is, how do we see energy when we are outside the body? How do we operate with energy? We know little, but there are some facts that sometimes makes us think of our natural defense and how naturally the processes work. So I'm explaining the mechanism, and I will go with you on how sometimes we are negatively affected or positively. But unfortunately, it seems that negative examples, they are more common, at least they are what people describe the most. So let me tell you a personal story, not one of energy influence, but one that taught me deeply how much we are interconnected energetically. And it's a simple example, but sometimes simple examples, they tell a lot exactly because they are simple. And it is the condition that once, when I was a long time ago, still moving out of Brazil, I had my objects and, of course, like decoration of the house. I sold everything. But I had a doll that was my only company since my childhood. In spite of having many siblings, I always was more reclusive and would be alone a lot. So that was my company. And it was a big, beautiful doll. At that time that somebody gave it to me, it was an expensive doll. So I loved it. And then one day, what happens is that I was about to move out of Brazil, and I decided, why am I going to carry a doll? And it takes space. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to donate it to a poor child, somebody that is in a very difficult condition, and I can make a child as happy as I was with this doll. Okay, a friend of mine took with a bunch of clothes and things to a poor region. And then I was already living out of Brazil. I was in the United States. And at a certain moment, in the middle of the night, I saw the doll just recently thrown in the garbage bin, completely dirt and destroyed. And it was a 20-year-old doll, perfect. And then I was shocked, thinking, oh, how terrible. I gave the doll with so much good feeling for somebody to enjoy, and the person just threw it away. And that was painful for me, not because I would regret what the child or the adult did, but how the doll was treated. So in a way, I learned a lot in that day, because I didn't care about that doll. It had been for a long time just in my cupboard. I didn't care which child was with the doll. They threw away without thinking of me, but the energy connection I had with it was so strong that even me, not even thinking of it, I saw that and I knew it. And look, there is no doubt in my mind that what I saw was absolutely real. So it was not just an image that came to my mind. No, I really saw it. And then it made me think how much sometimes, without intention, we may end up hitting someone's with our energy, or with the energy of something or an object that we had in our house, or that we get from somewhere, could in a way connect us to those places. So let me tell you a little bit about movies that discuss this type of event. And there are many. And some people, they want to ask us, is it possible that with an object, somebody would make it like a voodoo doll? You have seen it. So the voodoo doll, it's not necessarily an object. There was a personal object of the person, but a representation of it. But whoever is doing that must create a strong energy connection with the person. It's the same like if you are going to do a healing, a distant healing. A distant healing to really work in a way that it could be as if it were a psychic surgery, as if it were a deep, deep treatment. For this to work, we need to create almost like a duct of energy between the person that is donating energies, so the healer in this case, and the person who is receiving. So the healer needs some sort of element. So sometimes a person would use, for example, a photo. So let me see a photo, or let me have the address of the person. But why? To somehow, through that, try to establish a connection. Or let me have a personal object, because in the personal object, we would try to sense the energy of the person and use that sensing of the energy of the person almost like a coordinate for a GPS, for a location. So you boop, 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 and you reach the person that is about to receive a healing. The problem is that some people do not do this for healing. And also the problem is that sometimes it is done unconsciously. So one of the things that people sometimes ask us, like in the consciousness development program or in some of our talks, is, does black magic exist? Can this work negatively? Yes, it can. That is the truth. But then we have to add another element to this question. Is this something that we cannot avoid? Is this something that once a negative energy is sent toward a person, the person will receive it necessarily? No. Now comes the thing. Yes, this fact of creating a negative energy that connects with somebody, this exists and will come towards the individual that is the addressee. But in the same way, sometimes the individual who would be supposed to receive those energy with that specific information that is carried out by specific entities, like non-physical presences, then those that the frequency of that energy, the information, the quality, sometimes is incompatible with the person who is receiving it, or for whatever reason cannot reach the target place. And then when it cannot reach the target place, it means that the person who would be receiving the energies do not. That's one thing. There's another thing. Once some sort of energy comes towards us, we can perfectly not allow it to sink in completely. And then we can say, well, so it's good, so we are not going to receive bad energies. Sometimes we don't receive good energies either. So the point is not, I want to be closed. I want nothing to get to me. That is silly. Nobody wants that. I want to be with my energy field balanced to a point that I am impenetrable as much as possible to dissonant energies, to energies that are intrusive or energies that, in a way, are going to affect my well-being. That's what we want. But we cannot be completely closed, because what about those sort of energy that would come to us and would bring good synchronicities, would help us have an inspiration that is important, would help us connect with something that would bring us an idea of an experience from a past life, or an intuition about what is our life mission. So we cannot be closed. That is not possible, but even if it is possible to a certain degree, which it is, we do not wish that. You don't want that. It's not good. What you want is to have a strong energy field, that you know what's going on and you know what to do. But to know what's going on and to know what to do, we come back to my first point that I was discussing. We need information, understanding. I'm not saying here that only those who necessarily would do a course or would read a book and study would know what to do. Many of us, we know instinctively. But what is very critical here is that we learn how to distinguish different types of energy. And then I come back to the movies, because movies, they do represent how energy can affect somebody at a distance. And I'll be honest with you, many movies represent it very well. However, this is something I speak a lot about. They only give emphasis to the energy effects that are negative. I wouldn't say only, but I can certainly say 95% of the times, because terror and fear sells better. So there is a rejection of fear, but a curiosity at the same time. For me, magic, the word magic, is already something negative. Even when it is performed in a way that apparently is for not really for a really bad reason. For example, someone would say, "Oh, please, I want to do this magic so that that boy falls in love with me, or that person will give me a promotion, that individual will hire me." Well, what about the free will of those people? What about the interference that we are doing? Yeah, we are not wishing them dead, but we are interfering. Can we interfere? According to what I have learned in out-of-body experiences, according to how we teach at the IEC and in the Consciousness Development Program, we think we need to understand the whole context from a very large perspective, very big perspective, in which we know the role of each person, and we can respect each one at their own condition. So we can help, but once we are being neutral. And there's nothing neutral about doing magic for someone to fall in love or give a promotion to somebody. So those are very important things for us to think. What about when there is a course? And I say a course just because there are many, but it could be anything. Somebody would be teaching a person, for example, how to apply their minds to get a certain benefit of something, to win a prize of something, or whatever. And I say, look, if everybody applies the same trick, there are not enough prizes. Things are not that simple. We need to understand the mechanism behind. But the reason why I'm saying it is because sometimes, even not having a clear intention of harming, someone who is thinking very badly of you, or planning something against you, plotting something against you, or is, for example, discussing something negative about you with someone else and is always paying attention on you, you will feel that will affect you. That may affect you in a way that just comes to your mind too often, and then you try to stop thinking of that. But it also may affect you in a way that you start feeling sick or de-energized, or you have nightmares, or you are like with the nerves at the surface of your skin, and any little thing you explode, and that's not your normal. So many different things that can happen because we may be receiving negative energy. And I'm saying that in the context of when we are receiving negative energies because of a physical person, someone who knows us, or who was hired to do something and send us some energy. But once we understand this context, we can also put into place here the notion of what would be the case when some non-physical consciousness, like a spirit, an entity, would have something against us, with reason or without. I'm not talking about this was a past life thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a situation that is just simple thing of life, and that consciousness would get mad at us. So in this case, we need to understand how that would affect us. Some of us, we are affected more easily. And sometimes people just answer it from the tip of their tongue. Oh, because you were thinking negative. It is not. It could be, but it is not necessarily. Because sometimes a person could be good person, only with good ideas, and doing nothing but good to others, but somebody try to harm that person because the person is doing too much good and is interfering with the interests of someone else, of some, or with interest of some sort of entity. There are lots of politics in this physical life. Families, those who like each other more. In workplaces are terrible sometimes in terms of politics. And in the spirit world, in the non-physical dimension, there is also politics. Because those who inhabit there are people, some with very good cosmoethics, some with not so good cosmoethics. So one of the points that for us is very important to discuss every time we are teaching out-of-body experience or how to control your energy is cosmoethics, or a cosmic type of ethics, that it's beyond just the context of that person, the physical context. We have to go beyond the physical context. So what I'm trying to say here is that sometimes, even without being fully conscious, someone can do a very bad effect for action, interference on someone else's life. And those who are more sensitive with energy may end up receiving more. So going back to the point, not necessarily because they were in a negative vibe, just because they are sensitive. They get too many things. How do you get out of a negative vibe when you are so sensitive that you go to your workplace and everything is about competition and you almost can sense that in the air? And then you go back home and you have to calm down, take your time, take care of your life. But tomorrow you are again in the same workplace. So that can be quite complex for a person to put oneself into full balance. Of course, there are many techniques. Each person is going to use the technique that they think is good for them. I have done several videos about self-defense techniques. In my experience, there are many simple things that can work. Sometimes only, for example, trying to tune into a more positive thinking. Yes, for a very simple thing, it's okay. But if you are really receiving a big, like attack of someone thinking of you very negatively, and someone who has lots of entities accompanying him or her, and who would follow their instructions, it's not so easy to just say, oh, I'm going to think positive. You try, but there's something negative penetrating you. You know that's not you. But sometimes we feel powerless. We need a stronger technique. And if it's a negative energy is coming towards you, how can you create some sort of force field around you? And the force field cannot be one that stops all sort of energy from entering your field. Because if it is, it's not a force field. It's a process that makes you less aware of the reality. Does it make sense to you? For us to be able to say, I am aware of what's going on. I am aware also of what's going on in an energy level of reality, like in an energy dimension or energetic dimension. I am aware of what's going on in a astral dimension or spirit world, no physical dimension around of me. This is the type of awareness that is important. We like to call it multidimensional awareness. But if we are to be multidimensional awareness, we cannot create a force field that's a stupid one that just makes us blind. Actually, what's doing for us is just reducing our sensitivity. It's not really creating a self-defense. We need something that we can adjust the frequency of the force field. Of course, I'm using here an analogy, but that is exactly how it works in an energetic level. And then we can have more chances of putting ourselves back into the best we can be when something is wrong in terms of energy. But it can happen to anybody. You go to a shopping mall in a day that people are tense. You go visit your parents for the holidays at the end of the year. And then once you get there, it's different environment, it's different energy. Sometimes there is a feeling of tension for a good reason. But sometimes you look around, there is no reason. Everybody loves each other, but there is tension in the air. So we need to learn how to work properly with energy, not only ours, but the energies around, so that we contribute when we can. And we know when it's cosmoethical or not to act. And we know when we are receiving good energies because someone is connected with us, or when we are allowing too easily people to connect with us. Because if they are really close, knows us a lot, or they have a lot of energetic links, they have many things from you, so they have more power to get to you. Otherwise, they do not. Now, having said that, I need to make here a note, very important one. That does not mean you have to be afraid with your objects being around. No, because this is unavoidable. And not only our objects are left into some places, but also objects, I mean our belongings, personal ones, but also our energy. You go to your workplace, your energy is there. Your table is full of your energy, or your desk, better saying. You talk to somebody, your energy is flowing. We cannot avoid that. So it's not a matter of avoiding and try to escape from that, but it's a matter of understanding. I have received many, for example, pieces of clothes from dear friends that they say, Nancy, it's going to be perfect on you. I have used it not a lot and doesn't fit me anymore. Would you like to have it? I say, yes, of course, why not? And I'd say that 99% of the cases I have used them with no problems. There was no interference of the energy of the person with me, and I wouldn't even remember of the person when wearing it. So why am I saying this? So that we do not create some sort of paranoia in our minds. But I have to clarify that it is possible that sometimes there could be an interference. Because if I don't clarify this, I would be just saying, because this is not so common that we receive energies through our personal belongings, I'm just not going to talk about it because it's easier. Because in this case, few people will think there is some information missing here, there is a gap. So I'm not doing this. I'm being very explicit with you. And when we receive some sort of energies, depending on how it comes, it can make us feel very bad. There is one book that I like for the experience of the person that the person describes, but I dislike very much for the type of technique the person teaches. But look, that was written many decades ago. Perhaps even it's a book that you can find free. It's no longer copyrighted, but it's the book from Dion Fortune. I think it's Psychic Self-Defense. And in that book, she describes experiences that she had because of her sensitivity. And when I read her experience, when you can see in your mind what's going on in a non-physical level, in an energetic level, how she's receiving the energy, how that is affecting her, it was a very interesting example, and things that I have already experienced. I knew what to do, but I had to do something. But then, of course, at her time, she resorted to religion. So it's like fighting a dogma with another dogma. It's like this evil is not going to get me because I am with this God. Hey, it's just because that evil believe in that God, because otherwise it doesn't work. More than having blind faith, I think we need to have understanding. That's what for me works, and that's what I'm sharing with you. So, summarizing, I tried to show here a little bit how this information sometimes is hidden. Also, I shared with you some personal experience of things that amazed me. And I already had a lot of experience with energy, so it amazed me. I didn't expect them to be that strong. the story I told you when I was moving in the doll, and then how movies affect us because they always show the negative part of it, and how natural it is, and how much we do have a natural self-defense, but also how much it would be wonderful if we could have more awareness of the process, and also understanding the mechanism so that we know what to do. In other words, we have greater self-knowledge and greater self-control of controlling our own energy. I'm going to get questions here. Addresses, or you mean addresses, perhaps? The addresses individual has to vibrate to the energy in order to affect them. I do not understand your wording here. I do not know if it's my fault, Marco, but let me try to interpret and give you some answer about that. It's not only the vibration of the energy, it's more than that. Of course, energy has some sort of oscillation, activation, vitality, that we could call it a vibration, and it's a very good way of addressing it. But when it is of a certain vibration, the energy, it can be of a certain vibration, but with different specific qualities of information. So it's not only the frequency, but the frequency plus the quality plus the intensity plus the target that is there. And when I say quality, I mean what type of information is imprinted there. And then what is the natural level of cosmoetics or evolutionary level of the person who is emitting the energy. All of that makes difference here. So yes, vibration is part of it, but it's not only that. When we talk about the vibrational state to improve our self-defense, and especially when we talk about the Velo technique, if you are here in this channel for the first time, Velo is a method that I have developed, but based on ancient techniques. I just did research and could make it go some steps further in details of how to better perform and have better results. I have videos here explaining about this. It's VELO. It's an acronym. So if you look for Velo technique, this is what I recommend. But when we do the Velo technique, going back to Marco's question, when we do it, we start creating some sort of harmony and balancing of our chakras, and it changes the vibration, the frequency, the activation of our chakras, which improves a lot our self-defense. But it cannot be only that, because if the person is a terrorist, full of bad intentions, and love being in the presence of negative, evil entities, you can teach the person to do Velo, but that's not going to make the person evolve automatically. So we are talking about level of evolution in cosmoethics in parallel with how much we can sense and control our energy field to have the best condition possible so that we are not unadvisedly or in a way that we cannot avoid connecting with energies that are not so balanced. And we try to get out of it, but it's not easy. Sometimes it's a trap. That is the point. It's a trap. Okay, guys. Yes. Good. So let's go to another question, please, Carol. Giuliano Silva. Hi, Giuliano. The question is, could you talk about your daily practice with energy, your routine? In terms of a routine, I have had periods of my life that I had specific routines, yes. For example, the Velo technique, for long time, years perhaps, I would practice Velo because we need to practice to be good at it, to be able to sense the energies and to know what change happen in our energy field. So we do need to practice. But in the same way as someone who would play a certain music, then the person would practice the notes and how to play that well. But once it's incorporated, it's there, and the person will only make use of it when in a party and the person wants to go and play the instrument, let's say a piano. Same way with energy. So emitting energy, for many periods in my life, I had to emit energy. regularly, but because of something that was happening. Once we have already developed our energy to a certain point, it becomes a second nature to us to sense energies and to act to improve the quality of it. We will do what is needed. So there are days, Giuliano, that I would do 10 velos per day. I have had moments in which a friend, think of that, had somehow mentalized so bad energies and they were reaching me. It was somebody close to me that I had to do velo almost for hours non-stop. So I do according to the need, but I can easily spend days without doing none of this unless I'm doing some sort of work to help people. But for my personal routine, for myself, today I do not have a fixed routine. For those of you who are trying to develop to get to this point, and please bear in mind that I am for 30 years working with this, 15 years of research about defense techniques, serious research. So, of course, I have done a lot of the training, but I love explaining this so that we do not create in our minds an idea that, well, if I do more exercise, I have to do for the rest of my life. No, it's not a ritual. It is a natural training. So for those of you who are learning how to sense your energies, I recommend as many velo sessions as possible per day. Velo has to be done well. And by the way, I have the course on Velo already uploaded. The course that is the step-by-step on how to do Velo. Before Christmas, you will have it, I promise. And hopefully you can watch it all at once and do the exercise all at once. It's 4 hours, easy, and then bam, you start with your exercise. And you're going to tell me then what a difference that makes once we establish a rhythm with the practices. Yes, Sigurd, you are saying here, very well said. Sometimes a horror movie can haunt you long after. Tell me about it. Can you catch negative energies through such films, and how can you get rid of them? That has happened to me many times. Still happens, depending on the movie, because I am. And anyways, each of us, we have our predispositions or the skills that we have hired, somehow developed. For me, it's very easy to sense energy around, to sense the type of non-physical presence around. So this is a blessing, but sometimes also a curse. And I have had some movies that I watched that for days, they were lingering in my mind because the non-physical entities, they use the image that was imprinted in the brain. Look, it's a brain process. But it's not only a brain process because it affects our limbic system, which affects our emotions, which is therefore going to affect our hormones, the tension in our body, and the cortisol and all of that. So it affects us a lot. So when we watch that, the image that is imprinted generated so much effects for us that these entities, they keep bringing back that image in a way to connect with us. So we cannot sometimes stop thinking of that scene or that movie. And every time we think of it or we remember of it, comes a funny sensation, right? That sensation not pleasant that was present there. And what to do? What I do is velo, because that is some sort of information that got impregnated in our field. So you say, I'm not going to think about it. Okay, I'm going to do a technique, whichever technique, even if it's velo, but you don't do enough, long enough, you just feel a little better, but there would be some energy still remaining, energy from those consciousnesses, those entities that would be gravitating around because of the movie. Then they bring that emotion or that feeling, and the feeling brings us back the image, and then it's a loop. Because if the feeling is there, the feeling is what is going to be an evidence to us that there are some non-physical presences lingering around and making use of that. So that is the one thing. Sometimes when those presences got too close and I can't connect with them, for example, I have a dream, but the dream is all mixed with those ideas of the movie or what is in the minds of those entities that were present because of the movie. So sometimes you were dreaming or you were out of the body in an astral projection, conscious one. When you come back to your body, you sense very clearly the entity, the presence or the presences. What can you do in that moment? If you are with that very clear in your mind, you can emit energy. But you are going to emit energy as for cleansing as if you want to create that force field in your environment. You want to create almost like an area, a field, that only your energy can be present there. So then those entities no longer can fit, can be connected there. But this should be done only if we are super in contact with them, and we can go from beginning to end of the process, because you send energies and you go until they're gone. Otherwise, you do a good velo to remove all of the connections with them. And that is going to clear your mind. But what you said is so true. I was in an interview, actually in a podcast, with someone who is a movie producer. And she has a podcast. It's not aired yet, but it was about movies and how they could affect us. And I discussed so much about that there. It's a big trap. And sometimes I think, well, the movie industry, they are more guided. The intuitions, the inspirations that come, the energy that is grounding that is what type of energy? Because only or mostly, let me put it this way, mostly the negative stuff is represented on movies. And sometimes the representation is so clear that I think they have got to have seen that outside the body to represent it so well. But because it's so well represented, then it stuck in our mind because we have already experienced that, lived that, seen that. So it's very complex. Ande, hello. Is it possible to connect to a place like a house energetically? Absolutely, yes. Sometimes you can do the scanning of a house at a distance to know, for example, which environment is more positive, which environment is more negatively charged with energy. It's absolutely possible. Is it easy? Not always. Depends on what sort of connection we have with that place and our ability to create a very strong rapport. Because the rapport we create, or in other words, the energy connection we create with that place, is what is going to make it more effective in a way that we can really sense the energy there. So it's good. I hope it clarifies. Anyone else? In connection to more or less energy in the biological body and healing. Can we use vibration state and velo to biologically heal the body, such as after effects of cancer, heart issues, etc.? Yes, yes. It does not mean it will always work. The same way an antibiotic not necessarily always work, but most of the time it does help. In some cases, the help is huge. We have some documentation of that. But in other cases, it's a milder help, but it will always help. Velo, correctly done, it does help because it harmonizes the energy. It gets rid of blockages with old information and it redistributes. But is it easy to do it, to do velo to get to this point? It is easy to move the energy up and down inside the body, but not necessarily easy to get to this point. And why not? Because there are cases in which when we start touching those field of energies that are old with old information, unconsciously we start trying to avoid those aspects of our energy. And then it delays the process. But that's why we need training. We need to know the strategies. And that's why Velo is a method. Because move energy anyway up and down, we can do, and it always helps. But depending on the depth that we want to reach with the work, we may need a very well-established method. So we know the energy is passing through the areas that are needed, is really like creating an activation in some other areas, and we can recognize why it's working well or not. So that's where Velo gets complex. If you are watching this video and do not know Velo, please check the small video that I did with some tips and do it. It is no problem. What is sometimes a problem is when we do, for example, emission of energy, transmitting energy to something, or bringing in energy. That is something that we need to understand well. But Velo is an exercise for self-defense, for balancing oneself. So if we are doing correctly, as taught, don't worry, you can do it. You do not need, to be relying on another step or be concerned. Do it. Okay? So I'm super confident in saying that. Thank you. Question. Do some humans use non-physical entities to attack or heal other humans with more efficiency? Quick answer, yes, absolutely yes. If yes, why these entities accept to do it? Because they agree with the principles of those who are using them. And that question here, we have to remember, entities are beings in evolution. Look around, so many strange things going on in the world. Why people act in that way? Why people don't look at some evidences? Why people don't know how to process information? Why they don't know how to handle some sort of emotion? Why they cannot deal with an experience from their childhood, which not right now is creating an obstacle? It's the same thing you are asking me here. Because people are people, and entities are people in between lives. So they go with what they think is right. And that's why we need to learn about evolution, cosmoethics, to understand everything about the out-of-body experience, how the non-physical places are, what sort of experience we can have, how we can improve, how we can understand. We need to have experiences, first-hand experience, but also study, understanding. And that is absolutely doable. And then continuing here with your question, Mohammed, what is their interest in attacking or heal humans? I think I answered that, right? That's and look, sometimes healing comes with a price. So when we talk about healing, what sort of healing? Because some people do hire a energy work for somebody who have some entities who accompany the guy there, and then they are hired to heal someone. Yes, there was some sort of healing done, but what is the price? Sometimes, to make an analogy, it's the same thing of you work with the mafia, just a little bit for you to be able to get this benefit here. But can we work with the mafia, the real mafia, and then get out of it and say, it's like I never did it? You have a price to pay. It's the same thing here. So that's what I'm trying to convey. Okay? So when I talk about healing, I'm talking about a true healing with positive energies around. Hi, Justin. Nice to see you. Question is, what is your favorite technique for removing negative energy attachments and raising your vibration? By far, the Velo method. Because of the way the Velo works. I will explain why. When we do it, we are working only with our own energy. So we are moving only our own energy. But it's passing through all chakras. But not only here in the surface, because people sometimes work with their chakras only here in the surface. Like in the opening of the chakra, that is not important. The important part is there inside in the root of the chakra. And it's interpenetrating many dimensions because you are moving the energy of your energy body. It's not in your physical body. but that energy is connected to the physical. That's why a physical healing is possible. But that energy is also connected to the astral body. So that's why sometimes what we experience outside the body is also going to affect our energy. So when we do Velo, we are doing some sort of energy work, like a massage, like an exercise. I love calling it energo fitness. Yes, let's move our energy body, but which goes through all of the details and depth of your energy body. Then it starts harmonizing, like creating more balance into the quantity of energy and the quality of energy. Some of our chakras, they may be, for example, at a type of activity that it's letting energy go out too easily or receiving energy from out too easily. So Velo, because it's working there inside in the root of the chakras, it balances all of this. So it helps us become more sensitive, more aware of energy and of entities, but at the same time, with more knowledge of our own energy, more self-defense, psychic self-defense, because everything becomes more balanced. And therefore, it's easier for us to apply our energy. That's why I love Velo technique. So it's a method with several details, but once you do it, it makes difference. Now, there are other techniques, but I have tried to apply different techniques in critical moments. Look what I'm saying. Critical moments. None has worked for me as well as Velo. In moments when I sense something really bad and I am contaminated. Have you guys ever had that? Like all of a sudden you feel like a bitter feeling, something like an anguish or something that comes from nowhere. So how do we get rid of that? By watching a movie, by going to bed, or going out shopping? It's complex. So Velo, cleanse from the root, but it's not only cleansing it. Velo creates some sort of stabilization, adjusting the frequency and activation of each chakra, that the improvement is not only at that moment, it starts transforming our chakras and energy field. And that transforming effect, which is the last effect we get from Velo because it comes in a progress, makes us to become naturally with greater self-defense. Therefore, it needs a higher punch to get to. You understand what I mean? A higher impact. So it becomes like a second nature to be more balanced with energies, more sensitive. So that is the technique I recommend, and I try to explain why. Other techniques like emitting energies can be used, and it can work. Sometimes it has complexities. It may have side effects, and it only works at that moment with the entity or environment we are working with. So we would need a whole course to explain that. For those of you who have taken the consciousness development program, you have been through so many exercises, and even in the emission of energy, we have so many different exercises with emitting energies. So we start gaining more experience, because it's a matter of understanding how to do it, but also using different attributes or parameters of the exercise so that we know how it is developing. Is it going well or not? So that is the idea. Good. Hope so. Thank you. Bunky, hi, nice to see you here. One of my younger sisters has been known to practice black magic, both to improve her material circumstances and also to cause harm against her chosen enemies. Following the death of our mother, she caused negative energies to affect some of her siblings, myself included. This caused us some very real trauma, which took us considerable time to recover from. We suspect our black magic sister will repeat her actions when our father dies also. My question is there something we can do to, I think, to improve or to promote some healing, right? So your question here stops at the middle. But yeah, there are definitely things you can do. Start creating some sort of like a multidimensional energy field in your house, in your room. It becomes like a almost like screaming. Some types of energies pass through this field, but some do not, or not easily, or large part of it do not. When we can create this multidimensional force field, we will sleep better because less visitors approach. We will have less of moments during the night that we would wake up feeling strange. So everything gets improved in a way. It's almost like we are improving our energy field, but it extends to the house. How to do it? I'm going to say it in a peanut shell. Really. But because I need to develop many reasoning for me to go into that. But that is done with emission of energy. Because by emitting energy to your room, when you are at your best, and filling up your room with that specific pattern, quality, information that you have in your energy, it starts impregnating everything. And when I say everything, of course, it includes the whole area, even where you have air, because you open the window, air passes through. However, the energy field remains. So everything there, you change the quality of the energy to be super consonant to your principles, to who you are. And that will make a big difference. And then when the time comes, if you start noticing, you'll start having some nightmare here and there, would never be as bad as before. You simply do value and start reinforcing this energy field. I am teaching a course in January in Brazil about this. So several processes so that we can recognize the quality of our energy, how we can sense personal field. If any of you can speak Portuguese, you are welcome to join. There is a video here in the channel that is called How to Cleanse Your House Energetically. Something like that. So Bumpy, you check that. That is the first step of what needs to be done to get to this point of the multidimensional force field. Mohammed, can we protect our beloved ones distantly from negative energies, entities, clean their house, etc.? Just by sending good thoughts? If yes, how to make it efficiently? We can do that. It's not as easy as being in our environment. Not because distance matters, because distance does not matter for energy, but because when it's just our environment, we are so dependent of our senses that we are smelling it, we are seeing it, we are touching it, we are feeling it. So we end up creating a stronger energy connection. But if we create a strong energy connection with someone that we know, that we love, that is at a distance, or a place, yes, we can work equally effectively. But it's not just by sending love. It's by emitting the right type of energy to balance out that. Of course, love is present. You do not even need to think of love, in my opinion, because you are doing it out of love. So love is there, is in the background of everything, is grounding your work. So you get what your intention. You focus on your intention, and that focus on your intention is going to boost your will, the control of your energy. And then with that determination, you will emit energies. And think of creating an energy coupling first. With energy coupling, you emit energy. And that works nicely. Okay? Now, Marco, what do you recommend doing during a spontaneous out-of-body experience and seeing lower frequency entities? Marco, it depends on how those lower frequency entities are affecting you. Because many times we are seeing them, but we are not interacting with them. Or they are there doing their stuff. We just have a feeling of their presence, but not necessarily they are taking any action. So in that case, I would do nothing. I would just keep attention and learn, observe. I have seen some sort of environments in some out-of-body experience that are terrible. You guys know the movie What Dreams May Come? I have seen places like the ugly ones they show there. So that is something that is quite amazing, but in many times I was just observing. They were not noticing me, I was not noticing them. Or better say, I was seeing them, but I was not picking any energy from them. Now, there are sometimes that we are in an out-of-body experience, but by being present to some not so positive entities, we end up sensing their energy and it affects us, like makes us feel threatened or afraid, or makes us feel like we need to get out of there. The first thing you will do is think, nothing can harm me here. And that's true. Nothing can harm you there. What can harm you there is the fact that if you get afraid, your strength and self-defense gets reduced. So nothing can harm me here. Worst case scenario, I'll have this bad feeling, this type of energy. I will work with my energy and cleanse it. Period. Have that in your mind. And then, if necessary, you do velo there in the out-of-body experience, on the spot, if needed. And they will immediately know, this guy know about energy. There's, I'm not going to waste time trying to play, bully, have fun, or disturb him. If the condition is that those entities you see, they are in need of help, they are all confused, and you can help, because not everything we see we can help with. There's nothing sometimes we can do. But if there is something you can do, and it's possible, you can try and apply energy. Almost in the same way we were discussing before on how to help somebody at a distance, you do that. And you emit energy. But you cannot emit energies in a way that you are not confident or that you become submissive. No, it's like, oh, everyone grows. And I'm putting into words just an example, right? Of course, we are not going to think of words there, but it's like evolution exists. Let's do it. You can. Everyone can. There is hope. So you are sending something good, but it's not like, oh, just because I love you, everything's okay. No, not everything's okay. Some things people do are not okay. You still can love them, but what is not okay is not okay, and you are there to help them be well to the extent possible without interfering. But really, if they are not ready to change, there's no way you can do anything. So that's why you verify if your intuition at that moment is to help, to emit energies, and then do it. Don't be afraid. You learn from it. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Another question from Ande. Could someone unbalance certain things in us when trying to help us? Oh, yes, many times, and many people do. Sometimes people go to certain places to be helped with different issues. Sometimes it's a health issue. Sometimes it's just they're having nightmares. Sometimes it's just some misunderstanding or quarrels in the family. And they go to places and they leave it worse than they were before. Because depending on the method that is used to help, what it creates is some sort of infiltration in the energies, because they are trying to help with energies, trying to improve something in the person's energy field, to change the synchronicities, to get rid of some negative energies, to improve some other aspects of the energy. So sometimes it works, it's good people doing it, but sometimes we go to places that they just mess up with the structure, mess up with the stability, and then we become more vulnerable. Things may change a little, but we become more vulnerable, we become more open. Different problems come. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a lady. She was from Brazil, but she had been to places to learn about spiritual reality, to practice things, to be helped, to improve her energy. But she ended up going to places where the person working there, the key person, the guru, leader, whatever, plus the type of method they used were not very cosmoethical. Therefore, the entities who would participate and help in that work were not very cosmoethical. Difficult to say who is the chicken and who is the egg and what comes first. Were the entities not so positive and end up creating the synchronicity that that leader came, or the leader ended up attracting some entities to work there in that specific center or community for spiritual work? The fact is, we had to work a lot, create exercise, and teach her many things so that she could undo what happened to her energetically. So all the development made her too open, too vulnerable. But it's possible to solve. So we should not be afraid, but we should be lucid. We should apply discernment and always follow what you are feeling at the moment. Sometimes we follow somebody else's opinion. Oh, that place is so good. Oh, I went there and I became rich. And what the heck is it that everybody's talking about spirituality and talking about your first million and you improve your spirituality to be rich? When we improve, everything gets in greater harmony. Is what we need money, but sometimes it's not. We just need balance to live well with what we have. But what I'm saying is, people attract clients with arguments that are not real. And everything behind is talking about money. Not everyone, guys, of course. I consider myself an exception. I'd like to think so. I see different principles at the IAC. I sometimes see people that I'm watching their videos and I know with different principles, but it's the minority. Because at the end of the day, everybody not everybody, most people sell themselves to a certain price because it's what brings more people. So don't follow what others tell you. You go to the place and you sense it. You check it. You see what's going on. And if you are going to trust anybody, it's going to be you. Makes sense? What do you guys think of this? Sounds natural to you what I'm saying? Have you ever seen cases like this? Tell me in the comments after we finish, because I'd love to hear what experiences you have in relation to that. Tanko asks here, how does lust tie to this? There are lots of perverts gawking at women. What energetic attachments occur there? Lust and all of this type of seduction, of this type of mischievous, woozy field of energy, that all of that is part of it. Different type of energy, interest, different types of entity, and different types of energies are used in different centers, communities. But one of the most common uses of energy in this case is the energy of our basal chakra. I'm forgetting the name here. Of our Kundalini root chakra. That's the word used in English. Our root chakra. And then those energies many times are exploited to the maximum and exploited in a way that people leave their bodies and they continue having experiences that involve that sort of energy. Sometimes during dreams, sometimes sensing some entities or non-physical presences so close that the person would have physical sensations. If any of you have this, you do not need to be afraid. You are not powerless. But you need to think that that type of energy that is lingering there is hooking you with some environment, with a certain atmosphere that will predispose synchronicities. So it's important that we learn how to handle that. Okay, good. One last one, perhaps. When we use energy for healing or protecting from entities, can we take it from the trees or nature around to enhance our action, or it can be considered like vampirism or non-ethical action. No, you can use energy from nature, and in a way, we are interacting with the environment the whole time. However, there are things here for us to pay attention to, because you do not want to absorb energy from nature. Because if there is some entity that is creating pressure for some not so positive energy coming to you, and that's the way they attack you, you start absorbing energy from nature. It is difficult to say, I'm only going to absorb from nature, not from those entities, because they are sneaky. They find ways to penetrate in your thoughts, in your feelings, and sometimes, not always, they may find a way to use your openness to the energy of nature to penetrate you. So you can use, but you need to know what is the condition you are in when you are doing that. What is the quality of energy of that specific natural setting? But you can use it as a parallel tool. So let me give you an example. What you do, in my opinion, when there is some entity trying to attack you, velo, or emission of energy. But you need to know what you are emitting to. In doubt, velo. I promise you that is going to help. Because when you do velo, your energy do not go out. You are not emitting. But you are neither absorbing or allowing energy to come in. You create almost like a closed system of energy inside of you. So for that moment, the entities would have less capacity to affect you. So you become stronger. Then, in moments when you are not under attack, those entities are not close by, you absorb energy from nature. You can replenish your energy field and you continue doing different work. But when they are close by, my suggestion is that you don't do that. I wouldn't at all, because the tree is going to be more powerful than me in relation to my energy. No. And we are not talking about the quantity of energy, we are talking about the quality of energy. And when an entity is being able to attack us, is based on the quality of energy. There is some information in their energy that is creating a tuning with our own energies, and we end up getting that. And then we become vulnerable. So it's not quantity of energy, it's quality. And I have seen places of nature where the place of nature itself or the tree itself has bad entities connected to it. It is rare, guys. But I've seen entities using the energy of a tree to remain hooked in a certain place. So, yes, do it. Natural settings are wonderful. Energies are wonderful. 100% guaranteed? No. No. There are natural settings where there are strange atmosphere, information of energy. That's why you can do it, but you need to know when, what is your condition, and how you are going to use that. So not a good action to protect yourself from these entities. And it's okay to absorb energy from nature, because we are absorbing a tiny portion of it. What I wouldn't do, for example, if I would have a tree in my house and every morning I go there and get sucked in. But if you interact, you can get, but you are interacting, you are living with that tree. You are also living energy, with the tree as well. You are creating some sort of exchange. So that is okay, but you can absorb, and there is loads of energy from nature. Some people, they do it with animals. I don't suggest doing it with animals. The poor animals. Some people say, I'm going to, get a cat for me so that the cat absorb the bad energy in my house. So the cat is going to have to suffer all the poison and toxic energy so that you don't have to do your work. So I'm not talking about any of you, but some people say it. So it's the same thing. With some plants and everything. Here in Brazil, I do not know in other cultures, but in Brazil, there's a lot of folklore that some plants, they would absorb the negative energies. and they would stop bad entities from entering the house. So sometimes I say, poor plant. So all the bad thing is going to be like, following on that. It can, like a lightning rod, it cannot be, right? It doesn't sound ethical. But having strong energies that are not so sensitive, strong plants that are not so sensitive around, that sounds okay. Good, excellent question. I'll leave you guys. There are 2 more questions, no? Yes? So I'm going to answer the 2 more that Carol is telling me here. And then we stop, okay? Those are the 2 final. So the first. By the way, I bought your book on vibrational state. Thank you. How can I know that I'm doing it well? Is it a way to assess our progression? Yes, there is a way, but it's not straightforward, because sometimes we expect that when we do energy work, and by the way, same with astral projection techniques, that each time we do the exercise, it's going to be improving, always. But it's not like that. So there are going to be sessions in which you sense more energy, or afterwards you feel great balance, great peace inside of yourself. And then for several sessions, you don't manage to get to that point again. This is natural, because our energy is different in different moments, but also the energy that is around the environment, the sort of entities close by, they are going to be different. So it affects. So what is very important is that you apply 3 basic things that I mention a lot in the part of the book that I called the Velo. So the Velo, there you have that if you are really, really with strong decision of doing it, and then you want that to be accomplished, and you have your mind focused, don't doubt it. You are doing it. How well? It will depend on how much of your energies you can move. But it takes time, because imagine that when we are starting moving energies, it's like imagine you are melting down a glue that it's in solid state. So in the beginning, it's heavy and you have it, let's say, in a pan, and you are trying to melt it down. But when it gets very liquid, when it's very warm, it's so easy, right? That it's light. Same thing happens with our energies. There are sessions in which we are like moving that thick, solid glue. But there are other sessions that, for whatever reason, the energy is already more loose and more flexible. But what we have to learn is to keep steering until it starts to get more flexible, more fluid. And fluid is the word I use. So the fluidity of the energy will also depend on how many and how much of energy you move in your velos. So how many sessions and how much of energy. If you apply the strong intention decision, you apply you will. So it's not I want, but you do nothing. You see there's an action inside of you, and you apply attention. Don't worry. Sometimes we do not manage to concentrate because there are interferences from the energy around. So you have to be stronger. You have to be stronger than the interferences. Do not stop in the middle. Set for yourself a timer and don't stop before. And don't lose motivation because yesterday I did well, today I'm not doing well. I'm not sensing energies. No. Are you moving it? It's still too hard? Doesn't matter. I promise you that works. Some people very easily get it more fluid. Sometimes it takes longer, but it's beautiful, because if it's taking longer, what does it mean? There was a lot of work to be done. So there is going to be a lot of change. And I am fighting against whatever is causing pressure so that I don't manage to control all of my energies. So this is progress. So try to apply that. But with the course that I'm going to post, that it's simple course, it's 4 hours, I try to put on step by step all of that. But you read the sessions of the book, the Velo, and the session of the book that is the attributes. Those are the 2 sessions that are most important to you. Okay, my book is a bit technical, so that is why I did the course. So it's like translating to simpler words what needs to be done. The course will be available before Christmas. You come in an astral projection and complain and kick me if I don't have it done. I'll have to. Okay. So now our last question, okay? From Justin again. What about the role of love in energy clearing? Is that part of Velo too? I would say it is a huge part of Velo because when we do Velo, it's almost like we start feeling more love than we were before. We reach such a balance that we become more understanding to people around. We reach such a balance that if something happens that we don't agree with, we can forgive more easily. It improves relationships. So I would say love is part of it. But we do not need to think of love when doing Velo because Velo is a mechanical thing. So let us think. Love is part of our sentiments, is part of how we think about life and people. So it's much more in our mental attributes and perhaps part of our emotion, whilst Velo is purely in the energy vehicle, our energy body, which allows love and our principles come to this physical body. So when we are doing Velo, we are doing a mechanical thing, as if we were doing push-ups. But the more you do push-ups, the better you'll be able to handle a flower to somebody. The better you'll be able to do beautiful manual things. But the push-up is not the manual work. It's not handing a flower to somebody. The push-up is just the push-up. So Velo is Velo, mechanical. Bah! But I promise that puts the energy body in such a balance that we'll love more as a result. But we do not need to think of love. See, if that was your question, so that is the thing. Good, guys. Yes. So I thank you so much. Let us start stopping here. So let me give you a few information here that is important to you. That is number one, that you are going to have the publication on the Velo course before Christmas, and I'm going to do some sort of video here. But also, we are going to have a meeting for us to discuss more about this energy field. And I'm going to create some sort of mechanism and moment for us to do that in the beginning of next year. So I look forward to seeing you, and I'm going to keep you posted on our next meeting or next talk. Thank you so much for your participation. I enjoyed so much getting to know all of you, remembering you from previous talks. That's wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we see you soon.